All right, I believe we're live. So let's do a few introductions. I am the owner of Section8Consulting.com, and I work with clients in Section 8 housing, low income housing, and affordable housing across the nation. And clearly, we're doing casework, helping people establish housing and get through the process of dealing with HUD. And that being said, let's get on to the actual video. So, we're going to be talking about crime free housing and the effect that has. Now, a lot of people aren't aware of this, and so there are some fundamental problems and there's some pros and cons to both sides. So my goal is, I guess, to have a balanced conversation and then talk about it in both perspectives. And then when we get to the short side of this, then I'll be happy to answer questions about anything related to Section 8 housing and low income housing. I know a lot of people arrive just for questions and they're not necessarily interested in the main topic. So, all right. So that being said, I'm going to read a little bit that I had pulled from a friend of mine that does media. So the U.S. Department of Justice has reached a first of its kind agreement with the city of California, or California City, the sheriff's department, over a crime-free rental housing and program that led to mostly Black and Latinos being evicted from their homes, and it was based on allegations they had committed crimes. Now, the important thing to understand about this allegation is what's so egregious is when they entered an agreement to do crime-free property with the sheriff's department or other organization, and most of them are nonprofits, it means they can literally evict you based on what they perceived you doing. You know, if they think that you're doing drugs, then that's sufficient to evict you. You see where a problem would be with that. That lawsuit resulted in two things I knew were going to happen. Number one, it's a violation of the Fair Housing Act because it's not fair and reasonable. And number two, without any just cause in the federal state law, they're able to evict again for any purpose they perceive. So anybody that has a bias of any type could perceive whatever they'd like, and then of course you're out, and it could lead to other consequences, including arrest. But what it led to is civil rights under federal law, the 1964 Civil Rights Act. It violated that too. So you violate two federal acts. Now, this organization, as it stands in a city somewhere in California, they got away with it. Now they're caught. Now it's set of precedents. And so there are probably around 2,000 properties across the U.S. that implement this program. Now I'm going to read you the rest, and then we're going to discuss the real nuts and bolts of it. And I'm going to give you my opinion, okay? The ordinance encourages or even requires landlords to evict tenants based on allegations they committed crimes on or even near the rental property, not even on the property. And even if the alleged offenses are minor. Okay. So the settlement is a result of a violation of federal civil rights lawsuit filed by the Justice Department 2019, alleging that the city of Hesperia violated the Federal Fair Housing Act and Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that prohibits discrimination. Another cool word for discrimination is racial profiling. Okay. Let's be clear. Let's be honest. So under the program, at least with this, and most of them do run along the same lines, the program required rental property owners to evict tenants when they received a notice from the sheriff's department that the tenant had engaged in alleged criminal activity. Now, it's not just that. Now, I understand somebody commits a crime and the sheriff's department reaches out, but it goes on. And then from the notice from the sheriff's department that tenants had engaged in alleged criminal activity, so arrest without even a conviction, and in or near the property, whether or not the allegations resulted in an arrest, charge, conviction. And the Department of Justice said in a news release that it also encouraged landlords to evict entire families when only one in the household member engaged in purported criminal activity, even survivors of domestic violence. So whether you were the one attacking somebody or being attacked, you both just got evicted, period. You were involved in criminal activity. We're so sorry that you're in the ER on a breathing machine. You got to go. That's the level of this stuff. It also, these ordinances have proven to uproot lives, force families into homelessness, and as a result, job loss, schooling, and other opportunities, and disproportionately, as usual, affects those that are Black and brown. It's very, very stigma. It's a very big stigma with that. So the crime-free rental program increasingly is using law enforcement to find crime problems and often mitigate those issues among apartment complexes, condominium rentals, and all the other different types of property structures that are out there. This is especially true for organized crime and marijuana growers and methamphetamine labs and gang activities. Private landlords soon find that problems associated with serious criminal activity are beyond their ability to control, that they cannot be solved by law enforcement intervention alone because landlord, tenant, and privacy laws. To solve the problem, it requires a community-based solution like crime-free rental house program. So that's the other side. So that's the extreme of it. So that's the perspective of the program itself, saying that all these things are happening, when in fact that may not be real. So what is the crime-free rental house program? The program consists of 3 phases that is completed under supervision of local law enforcement. Homeowners and property managers can become individually certified by completing training in each phase, and the property becomes certified upon success. In other words, you give the police unbridled access to the property, and any accusation applies means you can evict and have people arrested for just the simple perception that somebody's doing something, whether it's real or not, okay? That's what it comes down to. So, let's think about this carefully. I deal in Section 8. I deal with landlords that have properties anywhere from one rental unit up to 1,000 units. How do we arrive in a situation where a property becomes dangerous? It's very simple. It doesn't happen overnight. Clearly, we have bad areas, but bad areas do not become bad areas overnight. It comes down to money. Isn't money always backs a lot of things, doesn't it? So you have a property owner and investment group that buy a property, don't give a shit about who they put in there to lease. The leasing agent's only interested in the paperwork. They're not doing any moral or ethical conversation with the people, see who they are, what they're about, social media. They're just doing the basics. And in the urgency to make sure that they're going to be able to pay their mortgage on the property and get the return on investment, they slam any person in there. And then they get upset. They get upset when you've got tenants, women and men that are subleasing their apartment to the crack dealer, to the meth dealer, and all that, and the property loses control. Now, I've dealt with properties before where I've had to rescue landlords from the property. They bought it. 2 situations. 1 where it went bad, and 2 where they bought it when it was bad. And you had to go through a process of eviction, but the people that handle the drugs and criminal activity will go into the leasing office and tell the people leasing there, or those and the owners, if I ever catch you or your vehicle in this property again, I'll kill you. You see where there's a problem there? You've lost control of the property. You completely lost control. And all this was because we need a good return on investment. We're not doing the screening that's necessary, and you're perpetuating the problem. And so that's where we engage in these crime-free rental housing programs where things go absolutely wild. I can think of many examples in my own city of Houston where, you have entire neighborhoods. Once it starts with one big property, it consumes the whole area. Because once your property is known for that kind of nonsense and you no longer care, it's just like a cheap motel that's hosting nothing but prostitutes and drug dealers. Once it's known, then they'll inundate the property and then it consumes everything that goes around it. You've lost control, and now you want to cry out to the police department to come out and racially fucking profile everybody. That isn't the way to handle it. The way to handle it is shut the building down and pretty much evict everybody out of there except for the ones that aren't a problem. Another thing is being a landlord, property management company, it's your absolute responsibility to do monthly inspections. You need to get out there and talk to your tenants. If your tenants are out there throwing gang signs and all that, then you've lost control. You need to be out there so you can start getting rid of all the problems. And of course, the most basic common sense thing is don't buy properties in high crime areas and expect that you're going to be able to change that quickly or efficiently. There's a lot involved. And so it affects both parties, whether you're the landlord or the tenant. And, about 30% of the cases I deal with are seniors that have got caught up in what we call project-based housing. Let's talk about project-based housing and how this program operates really, really badly with it. Project-based housing is when a housing authority, a public housing authority, not only issues a voucher, they buy up buildings in the area and they put people in those buildings that they own. So they're not just the person that's controlling your voucher, they're controlling your lease as well. Despite all that control, what housing PHAs have often done is rather than give tenants, people that apply and pass, if they believe you're problematic, they're more prompt to not give you a housing choice voucher, but they're quicker to offer you project-based housing. That way, they can try to control what they perceive as a problem on their own property. But project-based properties tend to be the bigger victimization, and a lot of people get caught in that as a fast solution when their time to find a place is running out. And those are usually the toughest properties to deal with because gunshots and gang activity, and clearly the prostitution and other things running on. It's rampant in those properties. I rode through many of them that were so dangerous. It's crazy. So that being said, I think that if there's a loss of control, I get that. But to give people unbridled access to just simply accuse people of things, you don't even know whether or not the person that's leasing there is a racist, a bigot, or whatever. And you're giving them unparalleled ability to simply point a finger and say, you know what, you weren't walking quick enough from your car. I believe you're out there smoking on a crack pipe. Therefore, you're evicted tomorrow. Oh, I did. You know what? Based on the volume of your music, which was 1 decibel over what I'm playing in my own home, I believe because of that you're probably a gang member. I didn't like your brand of music, therefore I'm going to put you out of there. They don't need any reason. I mean, none. And we deal that on the discrimination side. And then often clients come to call our office, not about it they say it's discrimination, but really it's a form of harassment. And so you want to solve problems, then you need to professionally manage your property. You need to clean it out and get an expert in there that understands how to clean it out. It took me 90 days to vacate gang members and drug dealers out of one property in Chicago. Now the couple that owns the property, though they're still in a tough area, they have a safe property. And that's because I understood the fundamentals of what the prior landlord was doing. He didn't give a damn. He didn't have to live there. He didn't care whether he repaired anything. Only thing he wanted to see was his check. It's that kind of shit that starts all this. You get one asshole, one bad building, and then it consumes the whole neighborhood. And then you want to cry fucking wolf and call 911 every 30 minutes because you can't manage your property. Well, that's your problem. So let's just be honest about it. If you don't like profanities, I'm not the channel for you. There's the Christian network that can help you, and go there. That's how I feel about that. We're here to get it out. All right. And that's no offense to anybody that's Christian, by the way. Good morning, Mr. Lemon. How are you? Lemon Ortega. New Year from me. Happy New Year's, my friend. Ash Blonde says in the comments section, my rent went from 1010 and I had to pay 195. It was literal shock. Well, the value of rents have been, as the market's in a crunch and inflation, rents have been going up about 7 to 11% a year now, and there doesn't seem to be a cap or a limit yet. So, Kelly, I really need help now. The landlord told me to move and raise rent because I told her the tenant is being harassed and bullied. Well, Kelly, there could be a lot of reasons. That may be the front that the landlord's giving. But ultimately, when landlords try to push people out, it's for 2 reasons. One, they want higher rent values. They don't. And the crazy part about pushing people out because they want higher rent values, they could have just gone to the PHA and requested that once a year. But instead, they were lazy, decided they didn't want to participate and fully understand the Section 8 program. Therefore, they've had the same rent level since 1980. And now they've learned that they can raise their rent. They become upset, and they believe the only objective way to get somebody out to get a new rent. It's not necessary to do that. The secondary reason is you get biased. Sometimes the people that own or invest or manage the place simply don't like you. And then, of course, there's a third cause. You actually did something that was a violation of the lease or the terms of the lease or their addendums. Lemon says, damn, Kelly, that sucks. Christopher Nearing says discrimination. Yes, discrimination and sometimes harassment and violations of both Civil Rights Act, among other federal laws that are supposed to prevent this type of egregious behavior. So, guys, we kind of talked here and there. We talked a little bit about Section 8 outside of what the video was intended for. If you have questions in relation to any of this, now would be the time to ask. We do live videos on Thursdays and Sundays. Sometimes it's with profanity. Sometimes it's not. I always believe, profanities do sometimes, a few in moderation, do do show the intensity of what I'm trying to describe. It's not necessarily me wanting to use them. I believe that it does get people's attention. I think that those words were probably originally coined so people could, show the intensity of what they have to say, though some people find it inappropriate. Okay, moving on from that. So now we're here in January, and this is a good season for housing and housing vouchers and low income programs. It's also been a wonderful year for landlords because many which did not have a great deal of faith in the Section 8 programs and low income housing and so on are now entering the market, and they're challenging the old concepts. A lot of what we, especially if you're my age or a little younger or a lot older, uh, most of what you fundamentally think you believe is what you probably saw in the news back in the 80s and the 90s. So you really do have kind of a biased opinion. The program for Section 8 low income housing has vastly changed. So are the people that need the programs. In the early days, it was a Wild West, young people doing the wrong thing and so on. Vast majority, 90% of the people that enter it are, seniors, disabled, and have serious issues. They're certainly not trying to get a voucher because they want to go in there for 1 month and destroy it and then get themselves banned. Most people, I find that the rate of loss is probably 2%, especially if you do your job. In other words, most people will continue to enjoy your property, not create any problems. Only 2% will float in there. And even the best consultant or company on the planet can't guarantee that every tenant's going to act right, but you can mitigate it. Now, a bad landlord that's just simply wanting a return on investment and isn't going to do any of the heavy screening, they should expect a ratio of about 70% to 30, and they're going to have a wild property. And of course, they're going to cry tears at their Christmas party about how shit's going wrong. But the reality of it is, if you're just lazy, then that's what you get. If you just want to check and you don't give a damn who's there, and you're mixing criminals and prostitutes and crackheads with families and seniors and people in wheelchairs and disabilities, then you're just as bad as the people you're accusing. And then, of course, you're adding in the crime-free rental housing program, which seems to be a certificate to racially profile people and to accuse. And then, of course, the program doesn't include screening the very people that are given a license to do this. So that means if they're a bigot or a racist, then that now they're incentivized to be who they are, which is a piece of trash. And as a company that deals with clients, I don't subscribe to that kind of behavior. And I think that housing is an important issue for all humans. We weren't born in the woods. We shouldn't be living there. So people need housing, Well, guys, I've immensely enjoyed talking with you. I'm going to look to see if there's some other questions. Lemon goes on to say, I'm in Birmingham, Alabama market. We got a few clients out in Alabama, actually, and a lot of people out in the suburbs, almost to the country, are starting to develop their country land into Section 8 and low-income property. I've had an extraordinary number of calls across the southern states from landlords, and they're really looking into the market because, if you've got the right tenants in place, they're not going to move. It's already hellish to find a place, and so you have you have a much lower turnover rate. Section 8 tenants and low-income tenants tend to stay decades compared to your normal tenants, 2 to 3 years, because they already have a guaranteed payment where the federal government's cutting a check. Then you don't have to worry about chasing rent payments, really. So the only thing is just take the extra time to professionally do heavy screening. Sit down and talk to the people. When they move in, go out there and talk to your tenants. Hey, go to every door. Hey, what problems do you see on our property, or is anything bothering you? See who's in the home, who's coming and going. Take an active fucking role in owning your property and engaging with people to create a safe community and get rid of the back actors. You don't need to have crime-free programs that give unbridled access to 911 and the police that go out there and harass everybody. JX, thank you for always keeping it real. Oh, I try. It's part of my nature. God wired me as a baby. He broke that mold. So some people like me, some don't. I don't worry about it. I'm just here to talk to you guys and try to help you however I can. So I'm going to put up a couple links. Guys, if you're struggling and you've been dealing with houses, you've been on the market for a while, and you haven't been able to get a voucher, and you don't understand the system, you lose sleep, whatever it may be, and you want to consult with a person that's an expert that's been in the area for about 22 years, that works with about 1,000 clients, I'd be the guy. If you're a landlord, you're a first timer, and the only concept and reality you have with properties of what you heard in the news in the 80s and the 90s, call my office. Let's talk, because what you perceive, what you let the news agencies sell you, is not the reality of what Section 8 is. Now, of course, all Section 8 programs, there's always a bad neighborhood, but that doesn't mean it represents the whole program. Many of you could be successfully renting most of your properties and homes to people that are absolutely normal, that are just simply low income. That's it. But you have a perception that's lasted, and the news has done a fabulous job of trying to corrupt that and make it look real bad. But to be honest with you, from my experience and all the tenants and landlords across the U.S. we've dealt with, approaching around 800 at this point, I would say that the ratio is like 4, maybe 5%. That's very low. And if screened real well, you can probably get down to 3, which means you'd have a hell of a lot better turnover and a guaranteed payment with virtually not that many problems. And you don't even have to roast the profile. People, you'll know when a person's good, and you'll know when a person's bad. You'll know by their actions, and you'll know by the things that they're doing and how they handle themselves in front of you. And the only way to find out if somebody's falling off the wagon and turning into something bad is to get out there on your property and do your maintenance inspections, announced and unannounced, and get out there and talk to the people that live there, and you can avoid all this drama. Well, guys, I've enjoyed talking with you. I take it for what it's worth. Today was more of an informational video. Sunday, we're going to dig in deep about how to get low-income housing passed quickly. We're going to talk about we're going to go deep into that. So what I'm hoping to do is tell you step by step, because many of you begged me for this, how you can fundamentally change the outcome of your wait times. Oh, well, the housing authority says it's going to be 98 years. Well, they're incentivized by saying stuff like that, when the reality of it is, it may be 80 years there, but one county over, it could be 2 years. You can get vouchers from any housing authority in America. And if they grant portability, that means you can snatch a voucher in a county that's a low population, easy to get voucher, and then you can port it to right where you are, where it's hellish. So there's all kinds of ways to, well, I won't say manipulate, but to speed this process up. Now, clearly, that little bit of advice is not everything you need. There's a lot of different things that go into that. But there's a process you can follow that even our company uses, except what we're doing is a little bit more than that. But it's going to change the concept of you bringing around some dollar store pen and spilling out blank applications, not understanding what's going on in the back process. Many of you guys are wasting your life, dealing with lotteries as a joke, because that allows them to pick anybody, and there's no preferences there. So we're going to educate about that as much as I can, and then see what the result will be. We still have been able to achieve getting people vouchers in 2 to 6 months in most cases. Only a ratio of about 6% don't get it in that timeline. So who is it that's actually waiting 15 years? Oh, well, I signed up in 1981, the lady says on the phone to me. Well, I'm so sorry. You signed up, and there's a lot of things you didn't do. You checked on the box that you're young, that you're healthy, that you're not a disabled, you're not a senior, that you have no preferences, that your only problem is you just feel entitled, and you don't understand why you've been on the waiting list 400 years. I can't figure out what your problem is, lady, at all. And a lot of you guys don't realize it, but a lot of things that you're checking and unchecking on these applications, to be honest with you, checking or unchecking a box could cost you 5 extra years, even more or less in certain circumstances. And you guys are just going out there, you're doing 5 minutes of research on Google, and you think you got it. You start checking and unchecking boxes, and you can't figure out why you've been on that thing since 1972, why they ain't called you. There's so many things going on with that. There's a lot of policies, procedures, manuals we talk about a lot. And if you understand those things, then you understand the process that goes on beyond your little application, your name, your social security number, and your income. It's like a cake. The more you ice on there, the quicker things go. So, all right, I've done enough rambling. I've enjoyed talking with you. I'll see you Sunday, and we'll get in how to get low-income housing, Section 8 housing passed. Okay. All right, and I'm going to address a few comments here. DPC says they're shouting out from New Jersey. Kelly says I've been about ready to. I'm sober 4 years. I'm glad to hear that. And Terry gave me a kitten symbol. I know you guys like my cats, so all right, nothing around. We'll see y'all Sunday, probably either 11 in the morning or 4 in the afternoon, Central Standard Time.